Bring Grace up at this point. We'll answer a question. I went a little bit long. You're welcome. Hey, babe, thanks for joining me. We're going to do one question. Is that okay? Yeah. You guys welcome Grace for me? Oh. Sit there, babe. I feel like I did better this week. Last week, I think I probably said some things I shouldn't, but...
You did great.
Thank you. Okay, gift of encouragement. Thank you. All right, so what's the
question? Is, what are practical ways to remain close to each other in difficult seasons of life? And then do you have a regular date night, which you answered?
Yeah, so maybe we'll hit the regular date night first. What would be some things that would help date night be not legalistic, but healthy habits?
We were really strict about our date night. And it changed a lot through different seasons of life, but we made sure that once a week we had a date night or date day when the kids started getting into school and stuff. It's important that you keep it a priority, and there's going to be lots of things that come in and want to try and take that date away. And we were very strict about it. And in ministry, it can be hard. Whether you're working a regular job or ministry job or whatever, it can be hard because stuff comes up and it seems really important, and it might be important, but it's not as important as your marriage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we, in the beginning of ministry especially, we a few times gave up our date, and then it really did affect us. And then it sets a bad habit for people constantly interrupting it. So it's what you teach and what you tolerate. So we pretty much just said, this is our date. And people knew and learned that they didn't get to call us or interrupt our day or night, whatever we were doing. So keep that on the calendar. Keep it priority. And it says to each other that you matter. It's one of the first things that it says to you. And then you can just enjoy each other's company. And I think on dates as well, I mean, we started out, like you said, super poor, saving for the dollar theater once a month, which was fun. I mean, it made us be creative and just hang out a lot. But make sure you don't end up just talking about work or kids or other people, but have something, there's even questions in the back of our book, but something where you're together answering questions about each other or acting interested in each other. And if you need a book to help you do that, or even going through Song of Songs.
By the way. Yeah, most guys do.
Yeah, going through Song of Songs and asking what you think about what they're saying to each other. I mean, it can be very simple, but it needs to be intentional discussions about your marriage and each other and how you can better love each other and get closer. Otherwise, you will get, and I'm guilty of this, like I get on tangents talking about other people all the time, and you're like, okay, so how are you doing? Oh yeah, sorry. And so we really have to work at this, and it's so important to do that. Otherwise, you're never investing in each other.
Well, and we say one of the keys to marriage is friendship. And they're going to say in Song of Songs 5:16b, she says, here's her definition of marriage. He's my lover, he's my friend. And the thing is like, well, I wish things were better in the bedroom. Well, that's the lover. It starts outside of the bedroom with being friends and making memories and laughing and having fun. How about early on when we were broke? We're college students, we're broke, and then we started ministry. And first 3 years, I'm a volunteer unpaid pastor running a church and working a job, and then kids come. I mean, how do you have a date with kids when you're broke?
We were blessed to have both grandparents switch off every other week. That was huge.
Yeah, A++ grandparent involvement.
We kept our dates super cheap. We'd go down to the beach and just hang out. We'd just go sit in places and not even necessarily spend much money. Yeah, but just hang out together and enjoy each other's company or the view or whatever. But when you don't have a lot of resources, you can still get creative. I mean, there's a lot of things you can Google for creativity on date nights. But when we were in college, especially, we just found places to go, new places to explore. And
we did a lot of picnics and visited a lot of parks.
Yeah.
And go for walks, and I love sunsets.
And then when kids come, if you don't have sitters or can't afford sitters, we had in our ministry before, a lot of couples did co-ops. So they would, there'd be like 4 couples with kids, and 1 week, one couple would get all the kids while the other 3 couples went out. And then they'd switch around once a month, you'd have to have all the kids, and the rest of the weeks.
You got 3 date nights.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked out really well, free
And for
childcare.
birthdays and Christmas and holidays, we'd ask for gift cards for movies or for restaurants or hotel points, and we'd stack it up so that then we could go out on some fun dates. So what was the other half of the question? One was date.
How do you, sorry.
That's okay. We're not going to fight in front of everybody. Just so you know, usually when we start a marriage series, we're fighting the whole time. It's just,
What are the
but not now. We're doing good. So,
what are the practical ways to remain close to each other in difficult seasons of life?
so what would some of those difficult seasons be, for example?
I mean, that can be physical. Maybe you're going through a
Injury, illness, health issue.
It can be spiritual. Maybe you are under spiritual attack, and really it could be emotional. You're dealing with something like when my trauma came up, we were having to deal with processing that. I've had, 5 baby surgeries and you've had health stuff come along from stress. I mean, we didn't know that those seasons would come, but we had to navigate them and make sure that we were connected during them. I think the thing is if you're doing this regularly, like we just talked about a date night, if you're doing that regularly, when those hard times come, it's already set into place so that you're just continuing to do that. You're just, the trial comes, but you're already addressing the relationship in a good way. And so for us, really learning to pray together, especially when those hard times come. But if you're doing that regularly, dig in more and pray for each other more. Be specific and ask the Lord how you can really serve your spouse in that season. Ask a lot of questions. I had to learn to say, hey, I think I know what you need right now, but maybe that's not what you need. What do you need from me right now to be helpful and to be help you feel more loved in this moment through this circumstance that's hard? And just ask each other.
Well, in other hard seasons too, sometimes it's your parents get divorced or they get sick or one passes away or you have a miscarriage or one of your children is struggling or has a health issue or life has plenty of complications. You lose a job, whatever the case may be. And in those moments, I think it really reveals, at least it did to me, just my degree of selfishness. Because I don't like to be inconvenienced. I got my way of doing things and I got my priorities, and you've always had the gift of service and I've always had the gift of being served. And so, and then in those moments where like you have kids or something happens, it's like, okay, I'm selfish. And I find that most of my frustration when life gets difficult or hard, it really is just exposing my selfishness, if I'm totally honest. And it's like, I don't want to serve, I want to be served. And it says, well, Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve. So if I'm going to be like Jesus, I got to stop being selfish and I got to think about serving. And in those moments, I think what makes those moments really hard, at least for me, when difficulties come into life that maybe were even unexpected or unplanned, I just get selfish. And I've got to just be honest about that with the Lord. I know you already know it, but I need to talk to the Lord about it nonetheless. And sometimes we do get in a routine as a married couple where you're like, it's working, everything's, we're doing pretty good. And then boom, I didn't plan for this. I didn't anticipate that. I didn't expect it. And now we've got to pivot and now things are different. And you used to not get as frustrated in those moments. I would get frustrated. Why do you think that was?
Well, I mean, it was my gifting to serve, but then I would get caught up with only serving other people and not keeping you priority. And so I had my issues with that too. So then when you really needed me, then I at times would get resentful because then I couldn't serve all the people that I thought I was supposed to be serving because I hadn't had you as priority. And so it exposed my wrong priorities. And usually that's what trials do. It exposes something in us that's out of alignment, whether it's with the Lord or with each other. And so we need to be willing to not double down in those moments and say, okay, this isn't working. So how do we get back on track? How do we love each other in this moment? How do we forgive if there's forgiveness needed? And just practically, how do we connect in this moment? And don't allow it to become a place of resentment or bitterness. Sit down and pray together. Calmly talk it through. And if you're frustrated, you can say that, but you need to do it in a way that you're willing to own if you're frustrated for wrong reasons. And I think that was what we had to learn to talk through a lot because we didn't know how to communicate. We came from completely different communication backgrounds. And mine was passive aggressive and yours was say what you want. And so didn't work. And so we had to learn to come toward the middle.
I think that's still my communication style.
Sometimes, yeah. But I think it's so important to not be afraid to learn how to communicate together and give each other grace in that process. I mean, that's why, like, when you said that about, you would fire me if I was your employee. I mean, it shocked me, but I thought, okay, you know what? That's his real feeling, and that's exposing his heart. That's wrong, but we need to talk that through and figure it out, because I'm not going anywhere, he's not going anywhere, so how do we figure this out? It's hurtful, but I need to forgive. He needs to see that that's not a good way of looking at me, and then we need to pivot and figure out what that looks like. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, it can be, if the enemy lets it be, a place for bitterness, for sure. I mean, I could have hung on to that and just gotten cold, and, we could be married but not happy, or divorced. So, I mean, those are really your options. You work it out, you pray it through, you be willing to talk through and have those conversations. And if you're implementing these date nights and this time together in the Word, time together praying, learning about each other, because we had to learn about each other's pasts and why we were the way we were and the choices we made and had to own. And there's a lot of learning, even though we dated for a long time. And so you always need to get to know each other more. And it's fun once you get in a rhythm of it, and then you learn how to be gracious with each other.
Love you. Thank you for being a good friend. And I'll close with this, and you can close in prayer. I think one of the things, especially when the hard times have come, that it took us a while to learn, but we just ask, how can I be a good friend to you right now? Yeah. How can I be a good friend? Like, I can't fix it, I can't change it, but how can I be a good friend? And even recently, it was just like, we need to go for a walk, hold hands, and just verbal process for an hour, and just talk and just be together. And that didn't fix everything, but it fixed us. Yeah. And so the friendship is always crucial. Why don't you pray for them, and we'll spend some time in worship.
Lord, thank you that you show us in your word what you intended marriage to be. I pray that we would go there, and that we would start there, and that we would ask you how to make our marriages better. We all have areas that we can work on, Lord. I pray that we would make you a priority, and out of that we would make each other a priority. And then after that, the areas that Mark talked about. Lord, I just pray that you would bring health and healing and joy into these marriages, as you have done with us. And it's been a process, Lord, and it's been amazing to watch your hand guide us throughout it. And Lord, thank you that you forgive us. Thank you that you're patient with us. And I pray that we would do the same for our spouses. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ben.